Introduction to Business Administration is the first stage in providing the total tutorials. Welcome to our quiz strip. As we did before, I described the process of tutorial or seminars in sense of quizzes. In order to recap and to remind and enrich your knowledge about theoretical issues. First quiz. The right answer is the right answer. Let me state that the right answer is the right answer. So our questions is, which of the following is not an element of management process? Here the questioner meant by management process a function of management. So he gave 4 options: leading, planning, pricing, and none of the above. Okay, it seems that pricing is not an element of management process, or is not a function of management. Pricing, it is not a function of management. Let's remind you summarizely about the main functions of management. Planning. When managers design a course of actions and a strategic choice to accomplish the goals of organization, this is a planning phase or step of management process. The second phase is about leading, inspiring team member and shared behavior to accomplish the corporate goals. Controlling is the process of monitoring how the plan is being carried out and to make the necessary change to guarantee the organizational goals are met. Organize, one of the main fundamental phase of management process. Organizing is the function to allocate resources and assign responsibilities. Staffing. Staffing is about recruitment, hiring, developing, and promoting. The task of recruiting, hiring, also firing, developing and promoting. According to this list, we can assume that pricing is an strange element of the process of management. Planning. To plan is the first stage in the process of management. Planning is the most fundamental and the most pervasive of all management functions. The key function of management planning. Usually planning is described as the fundamental function of management. If people working in groups have to perform effectively, they should know in advance what is to be done. To plan for future. What is to be done? How to plan for future. So, what is to be done and when it is to be done. What and when is to be done. So, planning is concerned with the following questions, the fundamental questions of planning. What to be done, how to be done, and when to be done. So, we can consider them as the fundamental questions of planning. What is to be done, when it is to be done, and how. It's about performance, of course. It is deciding in the present about the future objectives. It is deciding in the present now how to be the future of objective and the causes of action for their achievement. Plan today to get the harvest in the future, to get the result in the future. Accordingly, planning involves the following sub-functions. Determination of long and short range objectives. How to determine in the short and long run the objectives and goals of the organization. the determination of long and short run objectives, development of strategies and courses of actions to be followed for the achievement of those objectives. So development to formulate the strategies and courses of action to be followed in order to achieve the objectives of organization. Formulation of policies, procedures, and rules for the implementation of strategies and plans. So, the summary of this slide is the description of planning simply is the most fundamental functions of management. The main questions of planning is what is to be done and how to be done and when to be done. It is deciding now, deciding the decisions about the future currently, to design for future now. The subfunctions of management of course, planning has a function, it has own sub-functions. Determination of long and short-run objectives. Of course, each company or organization divides its objectives as long-run objectives or short-run objectives according to their strategy, inputs, outcomes, and outputs. To develop the strategies and courses of action. Why company need to develop strategies and courses of action? To achieve the above mentioned objectives. Formulation, this is the main. Formulation of policies. Later on we will know that these functions belong to top managers, administrators. Usually the function of administration is to formulate policies, procedures, and rules for the implementation by who? By managers, by the middle level of management. We know there are three levels of managers or management: top level of management, middle level of management, and lower level of management. So the policies, the formulation of policies, procedures, rule, etc., the functions of administrators. As we mentioned in the previous slide, the organizational objectives are formulated by the top managers. The organizational objectives are set by top management, administrators. They do that based on various factors. For long range as well as short range. Various factors. Including economical, managerial, environmental, governmental, so a wide spectrum of factors which affect the achievement of the objectives of the organization. The objectives are divided into approximately 4 or 5 objectives. You are talking about divisional objectives, departmental objectives, sectional and individual objectives. The plans may be in the minds of their managers rather than explicitly. Implicitly, not explicitly, and precisely spelled out. They may be fuzzy, so random, like that, rather than clear, but they are always there. So the plans may be in the form of explicit or implicit ideas. So we need to take out these implicit ideas. Planning is thus the most basic function of management. It is performed in all kinds of organization by all managers at all levels of hierarchy. Each plan should be scientific, measurable, accurate, realistic, and timing. Abbreviationally, each plan must be SMART, where S stands for scientific or specific in some literature. S for scientific or specific, M measurable, A accurate, adequate, R realistic, T timing. This is the description of the best plan. How to describe the best plan? The plan should be specific or scientific, should be measurable, accurate, realistic, and timing. Long run plan, short run plan. So that's why slide summarized or stated that planning is thus the most basic function of management. The most basic function, fundamental function of management. The second function also is very significant and very considerable. Organizing. Organizing involves identification of activities required for the achievement of enterprise objectives and implementation of plans, grouping of activity in jobs, assignment of these jobs and activities to departments and individuals, delegation of responsibility and authority for performance, provision for vertical and horizontal coordination of activities. Very huge, very wide functions. In the sequence, organizing occupies the second step in the process of management functions. So, organizing involves the following sub-functions. identification of activities. First, we need to formulate our objectives. And then, as we mentioned before, the formulation objectives is a sub-function of planning. So, the first step is to formulate objectives by top management. The responsibility of the implementation of plans goes to the function of organizing. So, the achievement of objectives depends on organizing function. So, identify the activities required for what? Required for the implementation of plans and achievement of objectives, which is formulated before a priori. Now, secondly, grouping the activities so as to create self-contained jobs. So, grouping the activities according to the entities of the organization. This for the next function. The function of human resources, staffing, recruitment. No, grouping the activities, financial activities, marketing activities, production activities, etc. So, how many employees is needed for a certain activity. Assignment of job to employees to determine which jobs and who the employees. Delegation of authority so as to enable them to perform their jobs and to command the resources needed to their performance. Establishment of a network of coordinating relationship. So the main sub-function of organizing is very important. It's about identification of activities required for the achievement of enterprise objectives and implementation of plans. This is the main sub-function of organizing. It is about what? It's about activities. Because the importance of the function of organizing determines the functions of the following functions, like staffing, directing, and controlling. So the design of the function of staffing, for example, depends on the design of the organizing function. To determine the jobs and employees, we need firstly to identify the activities required for the mentioned objectives and plans. Identification of activities, grouping the activities, assignment of jobs, delegation of authority, and establishment of network of coordinating relationship. Now, we mentioned two functions: planning or organizing. The third function is staffing. Human resources, recruitment, assignment of employees. Staffing is a continuous and vital function of management. It is a biological function of management. Let's see. The gradual importance of designing functions of management. Notice, please, remark. Planning about formulation of objectives. Organizing is about the identification required to implement the above mentioned objectives, including human resources. Staffing as the third function is the vital function of management. So After the objectives have been determined, strategies, policies, programs, procedures and rules formulated for the achievement, activities for the implementation of strategies, policies, programs. So, what do we need? We need human resources. Staffing. So, staffing is a continuous and vital function of management. So, after the objectives have been determined, policies and plans have been formulated, activities have been identified and grouped into jobs. The next logical step in the management process is to procure suitable personnel for manning the jobs. That's why I talked about what? About the logical building of functions of management. Planning, organizing. The next, as mentioned, the next logical step is to find human resources. Suitable personnel for manning the jobs. Why is this question? Right person for the right job. Right person for the right job. Here we are talking about the efficiency and effectiveness. Since the efficiency and effectiveness of an organization significantly depends on the quality of its personnel, which in brackets, right person to right job. How to assign the right person to the right job. So, since the efficiency and the effectiveness, later on please distinguish between efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency about how optimally allocate your scarce resources. Effectiveness about the output, the relation between planned and actual outputs. So, since the efficiency and effectiveness of an organization significantly depends on the quality of its personnel, and since it is one of the primary functions of management to achieve qualified and trained people to fill various positions, staffing has been recognized as a distinct function of management. Distinct function of management. Very significant function of management. At the previous, as all functions of management, staffing also comprises several sub-functions. It comprises several sub-functions. But here I would like to make a stress on the logical building of the management functions. Please put into account the importance and the efficiency and effectiveness of the function of organizing depends on the effectiveness and efficiency of the function of planning. The effectiveness and the efficiency of the function of staffing respectively depends on the efficiency and the effectiveness of the function of organizing. Here we are talking about the correlated efficiency and effectiveness. The interrelationship between the efficiency and effectiveness of the three mentioned functions. Let us see the several sub-functions of staffing. Also it comprises sub-functions like organizing and planning. Controlling is the function of ensuring that the divisional, departmental, sectional, and individual performances are consistent with the predetermined objectives and goals. Controlling is a function of emphasizing that the divisional, departmental, sectional, and individual performances are consistent with predetermined objectives and goals. It's about the follow-up, evaluation, and assessment. See, in order not to deviate from a predetermined objectives. Why it does that? Deviation from objectives and plans have to be identified and investigated, and correction action taken. Management of change. Deviation from objectives put into account. Deviation or from objectives and plans have to be identified and investigated a priori in order to take a correction action. Deviations from plans and objectives provide feedback to managers and all other management processes, including planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and coordinating are continuously reviewed and modified where necessary. So the follow-up of the efficiency and effectiveness of other functions of production, how they are doing well or wrong, to adjust the error, to correct the error. Controlling implies that objectives, goals, and standards of performance exist and are known to employees and their superiors. It also implies a flexible and dynamic, not static, dynamic organization which will permit change in objectives, plans, programs, strategies, policies, organizational design, staffing policies and practices, leadership style, communication system, etc. شو أنا قاعد أسجل.
ها؟ يعني الواحد ما يشتغل؟
اشتغل. It is not uncommon that employees fail to achieve predetermined standard is due to defects of shortcomings in any one or more of the above dimensions of management. So here I would like to clarify that the main objective of controlling is to emphasize that the deviation from the objective and plans have to be identified a priori and investigated in order to take a correction action. This is the main. Controlling assumes that the various functions of management should be work correctly, efficiently, and accurately. Controlling implies that objectives must be reviewed and modified where necessary. Goals and standards of performance exist and are known to employees and their superiors. This is the main of the function of 2. The responsibility of the operations manager includes designing and operating. B. Planning, procuring, reviewing, organizing, and staffing. Planning, staffing, leading, and controlling. None of the above. Operation managers usually are classified as lower level or common level between the middle and lower level. The correct answer is red answer. The role of an operations manager is to manage all activities involved in producing goods and services of business. The responsibility of operations manager includes planning, staffing, leading, and controlling. The definitions of the mentioned functions are given previously. You can check the definition of various functions of management: planning, organizing, controlling, coordinating, leading, staffing, etc. These are known as a functions of management. Lower or operative management. It is placed at the bottom, lower, of the hierarchy of management, and actual operations are the responsibility of the level of management. It consists of foreman, supervisors, sales officers, accountants or accounts officers, and so on. They are in direct touch with the rank and file or workers. Their authority and responsibility is limited. They pass on the instructions of the middle management or workers. They interpret and divide the plans of the management into short-range operating plans. They are also involved in the process of decision making. They have to get the work done through the workers. They allot various jobs to the workers, evaluate their performance, and report to the middle level management. They are more concerned with the direction and controlling or functions of management. They devote more time in the supervision of the workers. Top managers devote more time in thinking. Middle managers devote more time in doing. Operative management devotes more time in supervision. So they are concerned with two functions: directing and controlling. They concern with two main functions: directing and controlling. As you remember, the middle management devotes more time on the organization and motivation function, while top management devote more times on planning and directing. So these are the main three levels of management: top management, thinking; middle management, doing; lower management or operative management, supervising. Quiz 4. Which of the following is an example of external coordination? Using this opportunity, there is two types of coordination: internal coordination or inside the organization, or external coordination, the relation with outside organization. So let's see the example of external coordination. Is it communication between team members, or B, collaboration within a department, C, interaction with suppliers and customers? None of the above. Obviously, communication between team members indicates that the relation inside the organization. Also, collaboration or cooperation within a department of a certain organization. We are talking about departments inside organization, not outside organization. That's why we compute A and B, communication between team members and collaboration within a department, is an internal coordination, while interaction with suppliers and customers is an example of external coordination. Interaction with suppliers and customers is an example of external coordination, which refers to coordination and collaboration between an organization and external entities outside of the company. In the context of the supply chain management, external coordination involves establishing, maintaining effective relationship with suppliers to ensure the timely delivery of materials and components. On the other hand, options A and B, sharing information within a company, are examples of internal coordination. Question 5. Job classifications such as CEO, President, Vice President, Executive Director are associated with which of the following? Top managers, middle managers, or low managers, or supervisors. It doesn't need hard effort to find a correct answer. Top managers are responsible for a wide range of tasks, including goals planning, strategy development, and policy making, and above mentioned posts assigned by the top level. The middle management ranks are superior to those of the lower, but below to those of the top management. Lower level management, often called supervisory level is the lowest tier of management. So the answer is the red one. CEO, President, Vice President, Executive Directors are a top managers. The real significance of levels is that they explain authority relationships in an organization. Considering the hierarchy of authority and responsibility, one can identify three levels of management, namely top management of a company consists of heads of functional department with purchase manager, of top management of a company consists of owners, shareholders, board of trustees or directors, chairman, managing director, or the chief executive, GM, general managers, an executive committee having key officers. Middle management of a company consists of heads of functional departments with purchase manager, production manager, marketing manager, financial controller, etc., and divisional or sectional officers working under these functional heads. Lower level or operative management of a company consists of superintendents, foremen, supervisors, etc. These are main three levels of management: top management, middle management, and lower or operative management. We will focus on the description of the jobs and functions, tasks of each of these levels. Top management. Top management is the ultimate source of authority, and it lays down goals, policies, and plans of the enterprise. It devotes more time on planning and coordinating functions. Thinking, formulation of policies and determination of plans and objectives. It is accountable to the owners of the business of the overall management. It also described as the policy making group responsible for the overall direction and success of all company activities. The important functions of top management include to establish the objectives or goals of the enterprise, to make policies and to frame plans to attain the objectives led, to set up an organizational framework to conduct the operations as per plan, to assemble the resources of money, men, materials, machines, and methods to put the plans into action, to exercise effective control of the operations, to provide overall leadership to the enterprise. These are the essential functions of the top management, between brackets administration or administrators. The source of the formulation of policies, plans, and the determination of the objectives.